Warm welcome to today's All Atlantic Connect webinar. We will wait another couple of minutes to let people in, and then we can start our session. I'm going to start sharing. Yes, please feel free to say hello in the chat and say where you're from while we wait another minute.
Dania, you are not in the presentation mode. You need to switch to swap displays. Yes.
Thank you. Is it good now?
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay. I think we can start. Okay, again, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are, and welcome to today's All Atlantic Connect webinar. It's a real pleasure to have you all joining us from across the Atlantic for this new conversation. The All Atlantic Connect is an initiative of the Oceano Project, a project that supports the All Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance, ORIA. Through these webinars, we aim to strengthen connections across the Atlantic Ocean, bringing together scientists, policymakers, youth, and communities to share experiences, ideas, and inspiration around our shared ocean goals. The ORIA represents much more than a framework for scientific collaboration. It builds on more than a decade of science diplomacy, from the Galway Statement signed in 2013 by the European Commission, USA, and Canada, to the Belém Statement in 2017 signed by the European Commission, South Africa, and Brazil, and the All-Atlantic Declaration signed in 2022 by 8 partners: the European Commission, Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Cape Verde, Morocco, South Africa, and USA. Together, these milestones unite countries and communities across the Atlantic to advance inclusive, science-based cooperation for a healthy, resilient, and sustainable ocean. Today, the Alliance brings together 13 member countries, forming a growing community dedicated to advancing a shared vision for a sustainable Atlantic Ocean. Through AORIA, we are building an all-Atlantic community grounded in common interest to advance ocean science cooperation. And the Oceano project is a coordination support action, which I'm very proud to represent today, together with our project manager, Laura McDonough, plays a key role in this journey. Oceano supports the implementation of ORIA by fostering governance and structured dialogue, promoting capacity building and youth engagement, advancing initiatives on coastal resilience, and strengthening strategic communication and outreach across the Atlantic, as well as supporting the organization of the annual ORIA Fora. The All Atlantic Connect webinar series is a concrete part of this mission. It aims to promote structured dialogue across the Atlantic and beyond. And today, I'm also delighted to highlight that this first webinar series is being organized in collaboration with Oceans20 Brazil and Oceans20 South Africa. Today, we will begin with presentations from both the initiatives, setting the stage for a panel discussion that will explore how these global efforts and the All-Atlantic Vision align for international cooperation, science, and innovation across the Atlantic Basin. So thank you once again for being part of this collective effort. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand over the screen to our first guest, Alexander Turra, Chair of Oceans20 under the G20 Brazil presidency in 2024. Alexander, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Can you hear me? Yes? Fantastic. It's a huge pleasure to be here with you and to share some of the experiences we had into when we were constructing the G20 process in Brazil, the Oceans 20, and dedicated to the ocean, so the Oceans 20, and now I will share my screen. I think you can see my screen in the presentation mode. Is it correct? Yes. So for me, it's a personal pleasure to be here because this was a very exciting process of learning and dialoguing with different stakeholders around the world. And then when we see South Africa represented here by Tammy continuing this process, and then with big expectations that the next country, which is US, will keep going. It's amazing to see this process happening. So we are talking about, I'm talking about Oceans 20 with S, no, in plural. We were demanded to use the plural in Brazil because of the formal language of UN, and also because Brazil advocates in favor of using in plural because there is an understanding of that the ocean, although we have a connected ocean, we still have parts of the ocean that are different from others, including the South Atlantic, because it doesn't have war, doesn't have piracy, there are not nuclear waste, and we will have soon probably a sanctuary of whales. So we have a different ocean in our neighborhood. So the idea was to create a group of engagement of civil society to mobilize civil society towards the ocean within G20 and internalize the ocean issues into the G20 discussions, which is a group dedicated to discuss economy. And of course, ocean is economy, ocean is everything. So it should be within G20 in a well-structured way. So we based our movement in very important arguments, especially related to G20. They are represent the amount of coastline they represent, the amount of carbon emissions they represent, of global trade, and started to create a kind of integrated and holistic approach to incorporate the ocean within the G20 discussions. There were several recurrent themes or issues in the past years that were channeled to the discussions within Oceans 20 in Brazil. So marine pollution, the combat of marine pollution, illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, aspects related to governance for sustainability, sustainable finance, technology development, and scientific research, but also conservation, biodiversity, and sustainable use of oceans, and also accelerating the transition to a sustainable and resilient blue economy. All these themes were being discussed, and then we tried to incorporate into the Oceans 20 in Brazil, considering the discussions and the movements that were started in Indonesia and India, and that increased, this movement increased in Brazil. And then we incorporated the G20 priorities of Brazil, which was social inclusion and fight against hunger and poverty resilience, energy transitions and fight against climate change, and reform of the governance institutions, of the global governance institutions, sorry. So this influenced all the discussions conducted within G20. Okay, and there were 5 O20 or Oceans 20 priorities, which were climate actions and resilience, social equity and justice, health and conservation of ocean ecosystems and biodiversity, scientific, technological, and innovation development, and governance and international collaboration. These all are linked with the overarching themes of G20 in Brazil. And we worked on 10 points in an action plan that were synthesized and were summarized in the document and in the communique we published in the end of the year. The concept is that the ocean is a transformative agent of society, interlinked with all SDGs in different ways that should be incorporated in the action of different countries, especially the G20 countries, but not only them. We promoted a series of ocean dialogues around the world, and these dialogues were the strategy to capture the contributions of different groups, of different stakeholders all around the world, and also it was a hearing process. This was important to build the communiqué and create advocacy movements, and also to support the Troika and future steps of Oceans 20, as we are seeing in South Africa, and also to build recommendations, create recommendations for the G20 members. These dialogues in numbers represent around 6,000 participants in person and online, around 400 panelists with moderators, 34 countries. And within these countries, we have countries and or regions related to G20. So we had 19 plus African Union, and so countries plus African Union and European Union. So we have 14 in total, and invited countries 6. So we did, in my opinion, a huge effort to have to be representative of what we have out there in terms of countries and regions. But of course, we could did more, but unfortunately, we couldn't. This is a timeline. I'm not going into detail, but it was a long year, and that started with the inception meeting, and then in the end we had the summit, the G20 Social Summit, where we presented the communique, which is this document. It's available in the website of Oceans20, and we have key recommendations related to that main themes that I mentioned before, and with a very clear dialogue with the ocean decade and other global agendas related to the ocean. So ensure a clean, healthy, and productive ocean, expand sustainable aquatic food systems, scale up offshore wind energy, enhance maritime governance for sustainable shipping, incentivize ocean finance, improve maritime security, and strengthen global coordination. So it's also related to the SDGs. And then there were 10 themes that detailed these 7 big issues that are represented in the communique. So promoting a sustainable and equitable ocean economy, advancing an ambitious, inclusive climate and just energy transition, fostering food security and sustainable fisheries practices, conserving and restoring marine resources and ecosystems, strengthening inclusive and adaptive ocean governance, social inclusion and just transition, enhancing ocean policy coherence and integration, fostering cooperative science and innovation, stimulating public-private philanthropic partnerships, and accelerating ocean finance. This is important because in the start of the Brazilian presidency, the Brazil asked us to have some legacies. And one is the formal creation of the engagement group dedicated to the ocean. We started to build this Ocean20 community with all these ocean dialogues, and then we are still closely involved in the process within the troikas with the leadership of South Africa. So the idea was to transform a moment into a process, and I think we are getting there. Oceans20 in Brazil was led by the UNESCO Chair for Ocean Sustainability with several partners like the Brazilian Fund for Biodiversity, the National Institute for Ocean Research, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, United Nations Global Compact, and the World Economic Forum, with also the help, the knowledge partners, Rise Up, Mar Adentro, and WWF. And then I approach the end of the presentation. And if you are interested in details about the process and to download the document, please go to the website or scan this QR code so that we can share with you this information in more detail. So I was really proud to be part of this movement and to see what my dear colleague Tammy and all her colleagues and partners are doing in South Africa. So I hand over to you again, Tanya, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alex, for walking us through the Ocean 20 Brazil process and for kicking off our session. So now I'm delighted to welcome our next speaker, Tammy Morris, Ocean 20 South Africa coordinator. Tammy will bring us the South Africa perspective. Tammy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tanya, and thank you very much, Alex, for leading us into that. So it's by no means a simple feat taking on this Ocean 20 social engagement group as part of the G20. It may seem like a long year, but it actually turns out to be a very short year and a very busy year. So of course, we can't ever do this alone, and I'm joined by my co-lead, Nicole Duplessis, and our team at the NRF SEAN, Juliet Hermes, Sophia Sedek, and Melissa Philander. So we're a small team, but we have a lot of partners, both within South Africa as part of the NRF SEAN, and we fall under the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. We've been working very closely with the UN Global Compact, and as Alex has said, with his University of Sao Paulo, but also with Janice Trotduha from IMPO in Brazil, in Rio. We also this year put Ocean 20 on the agenda and made we got it endorsed as an activity of the United Nations United Nations Decade of Ocean Science of Sustainable Development. Sorry, always a big mouthful. So we're really trying to put the work that's been going on onto the agenda, onto the global stage. And bearing in mind that Ocean 20 is one of only 13 official social engagement groups under the Sherpa track. So the Sherpa track of the G20 is the track that takes the information to the leaders. They go around sort of policy information, and there's a number of working groups from all sorts of things such as AI and finance, or not finance, environment, and all sorts of other items, to have a dedicated social engagement group looking at the ocean and connecting to all of these pieces is very important to what we are looking to do as an ocean community. So to get started, sorry. So as Alex has shown, the Ocean 20 communique from last year. So we changed our wording to Ocean 20 just because all of our ocean around Southern Africa connects up. So we simplified it down. But we had these 7 themes and the 7 recommendations and 10 priority themes that we were looking at, being led by IMPO and USP in Brazil. And so our thought process was, well, what do we do now? We've done a fantastic job of understanding where the problems are and the challenges and many of the solutions to these challenges. But how do we take this work forwards in the second year of the social engagement group? So we worked together with a number of our collaborators, and we looked at creating an Ocean 20 South Africa where we were uniting for inclusive and sustainable ocean development. And we really wanted to advance some of the work that had been done in Brazil by really harnessing these cooperative innovations and partnerships. And to that end, we made an open call for ocean actions, which quite honestly, we were overwhelmed with the amounts of people that are keen to do things on the ground to try and progress some of these challenges forwards. So instead of just waiting for a top-down approach to many of the challenges of the themes that were put forward, how can we develop these from the bottom up in terms of our communities, our academia, and our science cohorts? And so we developed these ocean actions as targeted solution-orientated interventions that were designed to tackle these critical ocean challenges in a way that we could measure, we could take forwards, were inclusive. And so in a lot of ways, we've actually connected very nicely with the other social engagement groups of the G20, such as Women 20 and Youth 20, and you'll see how we did this going forwards. So the purpose and objectives of our ocean challenges was to action these high-level recommendations, to foster partnerships beyond just the traditional partnerships that we're used to in terms of academic sciences and others, but actually working with businesses, working with entrepreneurs, working with various sectors in the regions to develop solutions. We wanted to equip least and less developed regions and countries with tools. And a lot of what we did in this particular area actually links very nicely to AORIA, and we'll be able to show you a little bit of those in the coming slides. We also wanted to align with local, national, and regional efforts, and also the new efforts that have now been ratified, such as the BBNJ. So whenever we present Ocean 20 to the G20 Sherpas or to the other social engagement groups that are maybe not as aware of how valuable the ocean is to them on a daily basis, we always start our discussions in these saying, this is the year of the ocean. We have done a lot for the ocean this year, but you need to hook onto this and take it forward. So we get quite passionate about it. But also we wanted to advance the position of the Global South. This is the last year for the next couple of years where the G20 is actually sitting with the Global South country. We've had 4 countries in a row now, and it goes back to the Global North from next year. But we wanted to make sure that what we're putting on the agenda and those imperatives that we want to take forward move towards 2030 and beyond, and working with our Troika partners. So Troika is the 3 countries, the before, the during, and after of a particular year of the G20. So going forwards now, we would work with the US, who take over next year, but also the UK, who will take over in 2027, and making sure some of the things that we're doing now see forward into that future. So in terms of our ocean actions, we've done quite a few things on the ground. Alex showed IPOS, towards IPOS, and this is an AI solution to trying to understand some of the challenges and solutions. And so we helped to launch this as part of our UNOC event. We developed an Econ SA, an early career ocean network for South Africa, which we're hoping to extend into Africa, bearing in mind that, you know, this is a G20 for Africa, not just South Africa. So we really try to harness a lot of our neighboring countries in the work that we're doing. But really, this Econ SA is an umbrella of early career ocean networks, not just for marine science, but also for maritime studies and things as well. So really trying to help and bridge the gaps in terms of funding, but also opportunities for the early career ocean networks. We did quite a few initiatives in terms of innovative technologies for coastal resilience. We looked at connecting inland communities with the ocean, and we want to continue this work. We found that communities living on riverine systems really didn't feel connected at all to the ocean when their lifeblood literally goes to the ocean at the end of the day. So we really wanted to join the dots from the coast to inland, advancing blue food initiatives. And at the Midway meeting, we actually heard from some of our G20 partners in Saudi Arabia and China on how they are developing some ocean actions within their countries. So we are preparing a series of briefing notes that address some of this, and also our recommendations, which we'll be launching at our Ocean 20 Summit in 2 weeks' time. So just what we've been doing, we had our official launch on the 2nd of April, where we introduced Ocean 20 South Africa, and we were joined in the room with Janice and a number of communities from the UN Global Compact, from our government departments, from business leaders, youth leaders, industry, and we had a really interesting discussion on what are the actual challenges, how do we sustainably fund these challenges into the future and make a tangible difference. We then, in collaboration with Oceano, we hosted a innovative technologies workshop for coastal resilience on the 3rd of April, and this was a fantastic intervention where we had different communities in the room, fishers, we had community leaders, we had innovators of different types of technologies, and we had this wonderful graphic harvest happening as we were speaking. So it was fantastic watching her work and actually capture a lot of our thoughts as we were putting this together. And this has become sort of a challenge for us to live up to as we go forwards into the next years. We then took our oceans inland towards the end of May, and this event was opened by our Minister for Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Blade Nzimande, along with the Deputy Minister, who cancelled all the rest of her meetings to stay on to be a part of our event. And we connected with those fishers on the Crocodile River and working in Umbumbela, where you wouldn't think the ocean would have such a strong pull. And after we had had a long engagement with them, with how the youth could be more involved with different options towards the coastline, and hearing their voice, we had a greater understanding in both directions of what was important in terms of inland communities, but also how they impact coastal ecosystems. We then had our inception meeting in Umbumbela. We stayed at the university to do this, beautiful university. And we actually looked at how we could share the same language when talking about ocean economy and blue economy. And this actually came up as a question when we presented to the African Union ambassadors on Thursday last week as well. But we wanted to really build onto the blue foods and food security. This is a big issue for African countries and developing countries in general, and looking at not only coastal ecosystems to support blue food initiatives, but those initiatives into river system, estuarine systems, and how we can strengthen these going forwards to ensure food security in the years to come. So there was a lot that came from it, and I implore everyone to have a look at our website, where a lot of the reports have been put up for future work. We then presented at UNOC. We managed to get a side event on the Monday, the 9th of June, which was pretty tricky. But we were opened by the Minister of in South Africa for Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, Dr. Deon George, but also the UNGC CEO, Ms. Sanda Ujamba. And we looked here at how we progress this dialogue. We have a lot of voices in this marine space, voices that are on the ground, voices that are in government, voices that are in industry. How do we make sure they're all heard in order to make sure that the ocean actually goes forward? And as part of this event, we also launched Econ SA, but with Siggy and the intergenerational dialogues that have taken place recently at the Aoria event in Belgium. So it was a wonderful place to actually just showcase that, you know, we need to co-create this knowledge. This is not charity, it is justice, it is sustainability, which is what the G20 stands for this year in South Africa for Ubuntu. Nicole and I presented our first set of recommendations at the third Sherpa meeting shortly thereafter towards the end of June. And again, this is available on our website should you want to read through it. And here we really tried to showcase how the ocean is important not only to the G20 countries that were in the room, it was a large gathering of those countries, but also to every single one of those social engagement groups, official and some of the unofficial ones that were there, and how the ocean directly impacts women, youth, science, business, civil society, and many others. And we wanted to make sure that we look to adopting a just and sustainable ocean economy going forwards, but ensuring that no community and no region, no generation is left behind while we build this or ensure the sustainable development of the ocean. We've had a number of scientific workshops recently, the South Africa Marine Science Symposium in Cape Town, as well as the Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association Conference in Kenya, in Mombasa. And we hosted 2 accessible technologies, data and model workshops, one at each SAMS and WIOMSA. So taking forward some of that work that we had actually promoted on the 3rd of April already, and developing some really nice sensors that can be used for citizen science projects, but also making this information accessible and open access. So the main aim around this is open access technologies, data, and models, and making those available to other countries, and also to create a community of practice so that we continue to help each other to grow. We don't want to be going in as a parachute scientist and saying, here, do this and move out. We want to make sure that we build together within South Africa and within the African region as best as possible. And then working with Women20, we held a few events as part of SAMS. We had a real talk with the early career researchers. How do you really get into the marine science space, but also an intergenerational, cross-generational dialogues happening with women in marine science. And we hosted an advancing inclusion of the Global South in Earth Sciences, making sure that the Global South is on the agenda for these discussions, that we don't, the Southern Hemisphere and the Global South regions, we have more ocean than the North, and we really need to make sure that our names and our voices are heard when we discuss these challenges going forward. So finally, just a note again, please have a look at our website. We've been loading the reports, the newsletters. As we finish up with the briefing notes and the final recommendations, we'll make these available through our website, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. We have the Ocean20 Summit taking place at the Avenue in Cape Town, which is adjacent to the Two Oceans Aquarium. And here we'll be issuing our final recommendations and handing over to the US. And having we're hosting also an ocean visioning process, how we want to see the future of the ocean and how we do that as part of our communities beyond just academia. And then towards the middle of November, 18 to 20 November, is the G20 Social Summit. So following on from Brazil's, they hosted a first social summit with all of the engagement groups together. And we're looking to do this at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center in Johannesburg. And so this is a massive platform to actually put forward to those leaders a final recommendation from all of the G20 social groups, and to make sure that the ocean is firmly within this recommendation for G20 countries taking forward. So this is quite an undertaking, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of planning in and around both of these summits at the moment. And should you have any questions for us going forwards, please reach out. But also just to note that it is a very quick year when we look at it. We've barely started, and we're starting to really get traction now on some of our projects. And so we're looking to actually continue some of these projects into legacies, such as Alex has shown. And in particular, things like our accessible technologies work and the inland communities work, and just a few other ideas. And we really want to stay connected with those groups that we've put together now. So if you're still interested to even though we're nearing our official end, please do stay in touch with us. And I thank you, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you for showing us all these very inspiring activities and adding another rich perspective to today's dialogue. So we'll now move into our expert panel discussion, where we will take a deeper dive into how Ocean20 and the All Atlantic Vision align for cooperation, science, and innovation. I'm pleased to hand over to Laura, our Oceano project manager, who will be moderating this conversation. Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and for organising this webinar as well today. I'm delighted to join you to give an overview of the All Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance. And as Tanya kindly introduced me, my name is Laura McDonough, and I'm the project manager of the Oceano CSA. So Oceano supports the All Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance and is coordinated by the Marine Institute in Ireland, together with my colleagues Niall McDonough and Emma Horgan. We're a consortium of 17 partners from around the Atlantic Ocean. So as Tanya mentioned, the All Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance started with the Galway Statement in 2013 between the European Union, the United States and Canada to cooperate on Atlantic Ocean research. This was followed by the Belém Statement in 2017, which included Brazil and South Africa and expanded the scope of cooperation to the South Atlantic. The Alliance continued to grow with the 2022 All-Atlantic Declaration, formally linking these and other bilateral agreements with Argentina, Cabo Verde and Morocco into the current All-Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance. Since then, the United Kingdom, Iceland, Norway, Senegal and most recently Ghana joined the Alliance. So this slide that's on the screen at the moment, it just highlights the key milestones in the Alliance's formation over more than a decade. Oh. So, as I mentioned, the All-Atlantic Declaration, signed in 2022, creates and renews the Alliance as a long-term basin-wide cooperation framework. With the motto, connecting, cooperating and acting, the All-Atlantic Declaration sets shared priorities to guide joint research and innovation along and across the Atlantic Ocean. There are 7 priorities outlined in the declaration, and within Oceano, and the All-Atlantic Alliance, we are currently focusing on implementing 2 of those. So firstly is the Area of Action 1 on coastal resilience, which is being led by Oceano and specifically our colleagues in KDM, Stefan, Sophie and Jonathan. And the priority area on ocean observation modelling is being led by NOAA in the US. So to support the area of action on coastal resilience, Oceano has developed a knowledge hub to bring together researchers, policymakers and coastal communities to tackle climate challenges such as sea level rise, extreme weather and human impacts. So a number of events have taken place to support this throughout the last 18 months, including a dedicated workshop at the All-Atlantic Forum in Brussels last month. The All-Atlantic Network of Coastal Resilience Beacon Sites was also launched at the forum in September. It's an Atlantic-wide network of local and regional projects that test and implement coastal resilience strategies. It connects communities to share best practices with the goal of creating comparable and transferable knowledge for improving coastal community resilience across the Atlantic. So there are now over 20 beacon sites in this network and it's still growing. So please feel free to scan that QR code on screen to learn more and to see how you could become part of this network also. So also in Brussels last month at the All-Atlantic Forum, we launched the All-Atlantic Blue Intergenerational Programme. So this programme connects ocean professionals across generations and geographies and supports early career ocean professionals in a number of ways, including through summer schools, intergenerational dialogues, the Floating University Network, and also by the creation of a database on capacity development initiatives. So it's being led and developed by Oceano partners, specifically Lavinia in JPI Oceans, with the support, of course, of Siggy Gruber and Jonathan Heimer. So the next slide kind of just is just a few photographs over the last 18 months on how Oceano is building bridges amongst generations through the support of the intergenerational programme. So plans are in motion as well to organise a large early career ocean professional conference next year. So stay tuned for more information on that. And in addition to the work being done with the intergenerational dialogue, I also wanted to highlight that the work done by our Brazilian partners, so Delaney in CNPQ and Janice in INPO, who organised a 5-day summer school focused on numerical modelling in September. So this hybrid summer school offered presentations and hands-on exercises and was a great success. And just my last slide is just to ask you to save the date for the next All-Atlantic Forum that will take place in Salvador de Bahia in Brazil. So we'll be working with our Brazilian colleagues again. So, and as I said, save the date and keep an eye on the Oceano and All-Atlantic website. So that was just, I suppose, a brief presentation on the All-Atlantic Alliance before we get into the panel discussion. So I suppose as we've heard so far, the Oceans20 Communiqué urges G20 leaders to centre the ocean in climate, energy, food security, shipping, conservation and finance, setting global direction and ambition. The All-Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance can help turn that ambition into action across the Atlantic through science diplomacy, joint research and innovation agendas, capacity building initiatives and coordinated programs. So, Alexander, I'll start with you if that's okay. So from your perspective, how do you see the Oceans20 level process connecting with initiatives such as the All-Atlantic Alliance? Where do you see that alignment and where are the gaps, do you think?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, when we started to build this community, building a community means to make people together, to create a network dedicated or linked to the G20 process. So one of the main strategies was related to identify the existing networks, the existing movements, and All Atlantic is one. Very important one that can help to connect all these stakeholders, like their center, which has a very important network too. So I think if we have a community of the All Atlantic Air Centers and others, other initiatives like that in the Pacific, in the Indian Ocean, and other ocean basins, it will be a fantastic way to create this community and engage these partners into the discussions of G20. I think this All Atlantic can be a kind of catalyst, a kind of connector to all the researchers and civil society and governments and companies that are out there willing to and wishing to contribute to the discussions and the final documents of G20. So now G20 has ocean in the final declaration in Brazil, and this was part of the push from more than 6,000 people that engaged in different parts of the world. So with the help of All Atlantic, and I hope next year All Atlantic could be one of the co-conveners as well as the Air Center, I think we could have a wider approach, a wider reach to engage more people.
Thanks, Alex. And Tammy, I'll turn to you now as well with the same question. From the South African perspective, how do you see the process connecting with initiatives such as the Alliance? Where's the alignment and where are the gaps? And if you don't mind, also, you may speak to any potential challenges in connecting these agendas as well.
I think as your map showed a bit earlier, and it was quite heartening to hear that more of the African countries had joined in with the Alliance, but we're missing a large component of Africa, certainly on the Atlantic side, but also the Indian Ocean side, in terms of some of these initiatives. So when we look at the G20, the African Union became a partner of the G20 in 2023. So they're fairly new to the process still. And I don't think they're engaged enough in terms of what is happening, but also how valuable they are. We sat through a very interesting discussion with the AU ambassadors, where we actually learned, the value of the African continent to global resources in terms of critical minerals, in terms of being able to power ourselves with the potential of solar power. But also the amazing, if you think about Africa, it's surrounded by ocean. So I think there's a lot of potential, and we need to connect more readily with African partner countries in terms of G20, but also in terms of the different basin-wide initiatives. And I think that's critically important. So I was quite happy to hear that the Alliance had grown a little bit in terms of the African partners.
Excellent. And that's it. It continues to grow. And then if there's any other countries that are interested, they're, to get in contact, get in contact with the Alliance, I suppose, even through Oceano. We are that kind of, I suppose, contact point as well for anything. So in terms of bringing it back to the Alliance again, so the All-Atlantic Declaration has identified key priorities for Atlantic resilience, including understanding and mitigating climate change impact, fighting marine pollution, developing sustainable fisheries and aquacultures, and promoting a sustainable blue economy. The declaration also emphasises knowledge sharing, ocean literacy, and involving diverse stakeholders from across the Atlantic basin. And so back to you, Tammy. So from your perspective, which of your priority areas do you see as most relevant for initiatives such as the All-Atlantic Alliance, and how could they complement the Atlantic agenda with the for example, with the Blue Intergenerational Programme and the work on early career ocean professionals, or the early career ocean network in South Africa that you presented?
So I think one of the key, and it combines together, but one of the key legacy projects that we want to see continued past our Ocean20 presidency, but also just because it's very close to our hearts, is that of accessible technologies. So we're working with a number of innovators, not just in South Africa, but also through Africa and in other regions of the world, to make technologies that are easy to use, are openly accessed. So if you have access to a 3D printer, you could print them out, or easy to at least procure and bring into the country, and making these available for citizen science projects, for easy to use projects where you're looking at water quality and things like that. And so we've worked with quite a few ideas and quite a few innovators, and we want to build that up and strengthen it. And in this way, I think we could tackle two of the Alliance's questions, which is coastal resilience, and being able to understand the coastlines for food security, but also to mitigate against extreme events, but also in terms of ocean observations. So when we look at ocean observation maps, we always see a big gap where you see Africa, but also in other regions around the world. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a gap. It means we need to be building better collaborations with people in other countries. We need to not be just parachute sciencing in, but also looking at building communities of practice so that we strengthen each other's resolves, we strengthen each other's working capabilities, so that we build sort of alliances together. This is how Europe did it, or does it, continues to do it. This is how many of the global north regions do it, and we need to do the same on our massive continent, but also across between ourselves and South America. What lessons can we learn from South America? Where are similar challenges that we can take from one another and build that capacity in those communities of practice? So that would be the two, because you could develop accessible technologies connected to generational knowledge and intergenerational ideas, and build up that capacity for going forwards into the future.
Great, thank you. And they're really like interesting points that you made there as well. And so Alex, similarly, from Brazil's perspective, which of the priority areas within the All-Atlantic Declaration and Oceans20 do you see as most relevant for these initiatives, such as the All-Atlantic Alliance?
Yeah, I will echo Tammy, because I think this approach to integrate youth in a co-creation perspective of transformative solutions is a very interesting approach, because it engages youth, it creates solutions, it changes the reality, preparing for different things. So we can boost the blue economy, or a sustainable economy for the ocean. In the same way, we are preparing ourselves to face the climate changes, because these are all interlinked. So I think this approach is very important, and we need to engage the universities and integrate very well the ecosystems of innovation that are out there. And All Atlantic could be one of these connectors, helping to integrate these different stakeholders and promote connections that will bring different ways to finance science and technology and innovation. In the same way, we are creating opportunities of activities, of profit activities that will boost the blue economy in a way that we wish to have in the end of the decade and beyond.
Thank you. And Alexander, do you see any areas where Atlantic experience could influence global thinking on that?
Yes, I think one is related to the role that IPOS, the international platform on oceans, on sustainable ocean. It's not what, but how. It's more on how to do that and how to build these processes together with countries in the national or subnational in the national or subnational scale. I think this could be a very important role of All Atlantic to integrate with these movements and do that. I would also say that All Atlantic could have a bigger role within the Ocean Decade, perhaps stimulating the submission of projects or programs, or eventually being a decade implementation partner to help to the implementation of the Ocean Decade. I am in the advisory board of the Ocean Decade for 4 years. I'm one of the co-chairs, and I'm seeing the need to have more people engaged and to have more energy being put into the process. And I think All Atlantic could be a very important partner, active partner on that.
Oh, thank you. That's something I'll definitely take forward to the governance structure of the All Atlantic Alliance as well. And I suppose we've already touched on, building an All Atlantic community, but I guess one of the big drivers of the All Atlantic Alliance is to work towards building this All Atlantic community, to translate Atlantic cooperation into concrete projects, partnerships across research, policy, and local communities. So I suppose, Tammy, are there funding or partnership opportunities already identified by Oceans20 that the All Atlantic Alliance could leverage to help continue to build this All Atlantic community?
So one of the briefing notes that we're preparing as part of our final communique goes around blue finance and how countries, regions, institutions, groups can look to actually fund a sustainable ocean economy. Funding for oceans ocean has typically not been very strong. And most of it sits within research or research programs or things like that. So there isn't a large push towards it. This has slowly changed with the BEF that took place this year in Monaco, the Blue Finance Forum, if I've got the acronym correct. But there's been a number of tools that have since been launched where industries who want to invest in ocean space are able to do that. And also those researchers who are keen, who have really clever, innovative ideas, trying to take things forward, can then look at how they could try and access some of these types of funding. So we will put the brief out, but at the same time, also try and provide links to some of these ideas and mechanisms that are now becoming more readily available. So it's following a similar trend of green finance that's been going on for a number of years now, is to actually push that blue finance mechanism. It's still not very easy. It is still a tricky area to work in, but it's something we really wanted to try and push through this presidency, and hopefully something that will continue onwards through the US.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add to that, Alexander?
Yes. In fact, I think the private sector should engage for the right reason, and not necessarily for the normal reasons that they use to engage with universities. And so we need to qualify this relationship and make the companies understand what are their roles. So they have not only to look at not to themselves, but also to look outside and understand their strategic role in promoting something very important. I created a name here, which is not B2B, business to business, but business to blue. And we need to face and we need to help the companies to understand which hue of blue they have, and choose one and pick one or more to really focus their attention on that in different ways. And the more we do that, the more we'll have the right money, the right support to do the right things for the right reasons. We need to advance on this.
Great, thank you. I suppose you mentioned the different types of tools there. So while not like financial tools, but one tool that we launched last month was the All Atlantic Network of Coastal Resilience Beacon Sites. So it aims to engage communities across the Atlantic, including small island developing states and coastal communities and local stakeholders. So back to you, Alexander, again, how do you think that the All-Atlantic Alliance and Oceans20 could collaborate to scale those kinds of inclusive approaches?
No, this is perhaps the big outcome of G20, because if you have these countries leading this process, understanding the importance of these initiatives, they will bring the others together. And so they have a very, very important influence in the other countries and in shaping the multilateral agreements. So as the more we internalize these principles, tools, and approaches within the G20 countries and have them as partners in this process of transformation of the ocean and of society, will have a cascading effect to bring out all other countries together to see opportunities in the blue economy, or the opportunities to spend less money in facing the consequences of climate crisis, when if they can anticipate and prevent it. So I think this pedagogic process is the key to expand, to scale up the changes with the leadership of the G20 countries. That's why it's so important to have them on board.
Thank you. And Tammy, did you want to add anything to that?
Just very quickly, I've added into the chat the Ocean Investment Protocol that was developed by the UN Global Compact and launched at the UN Ocean Conference in Nice in June. And this is a really nice way of how we can really look at putting this together. I see, sorry, Tanya's put it out to everyone. Sorry, I put it in the wrong part of the chat. So this is a nice way of looking at how different industries can access funding, etc. But then also to really have a look at what blue bonds are. It's a whole different world in terms of economy, economics and things, but it's something that's really helpful, I think.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm just going to have a quick look at the Q&A, and I see that there is actually a question there from Jose Moutinho. So nice to see you joined us, Jose. So the question is, I'd say for me, are there any plans to join or plans to engage or invite Caribbean countries to join the All-Atlantic Initiative? So yes, there are, and it's definitely on the agenda. So I'd say watch the spaces. We would love to have them engaged as well. And if there are any representatives from the SIDS or anything on the webinar today, please do get in contact as well with us. But I'm conscious of time, that we're coming to the end of our webinar. But I just wanted to say thank you so much, Tammy and Alexander, for your insights into Ocean Brazil, 20 Brazil and Oceans20 South Africa. And I really do wish we had more time to discuss in more detail, but it's clear that today's presentations and panel discussions set a strong foundation for collaboration, showing clear alignment between the Oceans20 initiative and the All-Atlantic vision for international cooperation, science and innovation across the Atlantic and hopefully beyond as a model. So I will hand back to Tanya now for her final remarks, but just wanted to say thank you both again.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Special thanks to Alex, Tammy, and Laura for sharing your perspectives. And this section it highlighted how collaboration across regions and communities is really a key to achieving a real impact for our oceans. And so, yeah, we are really close to the end. So I just want to invite everyone to stay connected with ORIA and also Ocean20 on social media. And please keep an eye out, because we will have other All Atlantic Connect sessions. This series is a series of 6 web sessions. And so, yeah, please keep follow us to keep updated. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Tanya, and everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Obrigada.
Ok, obrigado a você.
Boa
Parabéns.
defesa. Foi
Acho que
muito
foi
bom.
bom. Eu acho que o processo do G20 ele é muito impalatável.